What's happening, gang? Hope this message finds everybody well. Video number 2, what this is going to be talking about is me and the Fred Whitton challenge that's incoming in 2 weeks' time. How to set yourself up to sort of develop resilience and to rise into challenge rather than getting inhibited by it. You can actually use that to your advantage and actually put yourself in a position to grow. So, the Fred Whitton challenge, a little bit about this. I've got 2 weeks. 2 weeks' time, me and Matthew Clark, the legend, we head up to the Lake District where we compete in a race called the Fred Whitton Challenge, and it is a 112-mile bike ride around the Lake District, which is 180k. Not realising this when I signed up to it with him, but this is called the Big Daddy, or the hardest biking sportif in the UK. Reason for it is because of the undulations in terrain and for the amount of people that actually either drop out or don't finish. Now, yes, there is a part of me which is shitting myself without layman's terms, purely because this is something that I've never done before. I've never done something that's a long distance bike ride like this. I've ridden around Singapore. That's a very different ballgame. That's all flat. I don't mind that. I could go that for hours. But this is actually going to be a huge challenge for me mentally. It can take people anywhere between professionals, take 6 hours, all the way up to 11. I think I'm going to aim to try and hit it in 9 or 10, to be honest. Anything earlier than that, I'll be happy. But putting the foot on the ball here and trying to put this into your situation, what I'd strongly recommend is that you always sink down to the levels of your training when it comes down to the challenge that you set yourself. And also understanding what that means. I think a lot of people in the sort of high performance space, whether you're coaches, athletes, leaders, or someone who's trying to push themselves, is when you get bored, it's because you haven't got anything to strive for. Now, obviously the old term of no pressure, no diamonds is a massive one that we use at the Stay Strong Collective, because I thrive under pressure. I want someone to push me to the limit. I want to see where I am physically capable, mentally and emotionally capable, because I want to explore. And I use resilience and I use challenges for self-mastery. I don't use them to bully against other people. Don't get me twisted. When I was younger, when I was a young professional athlete, or when I was not even a professional athlete, when I was a young gun, I used to think challenge was me versus them. I wanted to prove somebody wrong the whole time. Now that I've got older, now that I've realized and I've been more educated around the subject, it's me versus me. I use challenge for self-mastery, and this is an exploration of my physical performance and my mental fortitude. So, things that are going to have to be taken into consideration for the race is exactly the same thing as the marathon. From a nutrition standpoint, it's going to be very, very targeted in relation to the amount of carbohydrate and hydration I'm going to be having. But this, to me, is more of an emotional battle. Being sat in a seat, pushing uphill, which feel like you're going really quickly, but you're going very, very slow, and the inclines are horrendous. I did a bike ride next to me at Doveston, and the gradient was 9%. These can get to this race, some of the hills are 30%, which is like this. So they've been known to have professional riders get off their bike, which is horrendous. So anyway, the way that I've dealt with this and the way that I haven't become paralyzed by it and I haven't got scared by it is because I sink to the levels of my training. I massively endorse being physically capable 80% of the year. The whole time, I want to be 80% ready the whole time. The 80% rule we use in the Stay Strong Collective is because I want to be able to pigeonhole myself into stuff like this on short notice. Now, some people will see this as a huge step too far. Just remember, off the last video, my training age, who I am, what I've done from a strength and conditioning standpoint. Yes, this is hard, but this isn't the hardest thing that I've ever done. And also, it's not life-threatening. So my head going into this is I'm back in my training, I'm back in my education and systems leading into the race, but also being emotionally resilient, being a stubborn fucker is literally what I've been brought up on. And something that I'd like to teach you to do is to understand is that resilience is a trained muscle. Resilience is not just an emotional state where we see these alpha males running around saying they can beat the shit out of people and making loads of money or doing stupid challenges. Resilience can be put into your situation. Are you unwilling to change who you're setting your standards? Are you actually being true to yourself and not being overwhelmed by the fact that other people are going to try and drag you down? Are you putting yourself in the right environments that are going to help you grow? Because we all know that no pressure, no diamonds is a huge metaphor that I learned from last year. And putting yourself under pressure makes you rise to challenge. And why you want to rise to challenge is because you actually increase, this is where you get geeky into stuff like flow states, where if you were to draw a grid and the furthest away from you was flow, which is the ultimate place where time stops and you feel like you're being the most productive. You obviously have anxiety. If you're too anxious, you're not going to be able to operate. You also have apathy and boredom there underneath. If the task is too easy, you're going to get bored. I think a lot of people that I have in this situation, they know as a coach, they're bored in their coaching business because they're not challenging themselves to learn and grow and develop their whole clients and their team. I see leaders in the same perspective. They're still doing the same old shit they've been doing 10 years ago. Rather than growing with the times, growing and evolving with the people, what they're doing is trying to put a square thing through a round hole. Now, how can you develop resiliency? Well, what I coach and what I've always taught around is, you obviously, when you're doing strength conditioning, you look at macro cycles, which are your year cycles, your meso cycles, which are your blocks of training, and your micro, the really small doses. We're looking at that the same with developing resilience. And also when you're looking at sort of leadership-based pyramids of growing the sort of the self-mastered human, or whatever you want to call, physical body leads everything. You then have emotional state and mindset. You then actually lead into how you deliver yourself and be more self-aware for others, and also then how you're self-aware in the environment that you're in. Now, that's all developed from it starts at the beginning, your physical body. Now, if your physical body isn't robust, if it isn't resilient, if it isn't challenged, if it isn't put into a different position that it hasn't been in before, that's where you get stagnant. You cannot grow a muscle unless you supersede what you've done before. You cannot get stronger if you have repeated exposure at higher levels of weights to get adaptation. The point of that is your brain and your resiliency with yourself is exactly the same thing. Now, what we have and what we do and how I do this are three key things. Is I do something hard every single day. Something that I find tough, something that I find, and that can be anything. I don't think, resilience does not mean you have to fucking put on a weight vest and run up the stairs 30 times. It doesn't mean you have to do burpees in the fucking living room. Resilience can be something that you find challenging. Me personally, I've said this a million times, is I'm fluent dyslexic. I'm very, very bad at reading. It's not good. I'm better at doing this. I'm not very good at reading and writing is not my forte. But what challenges me and what makes me more robust from a mental standpoint is I read every single day. I read every single day because I know that challenge is going to help me in the long term. And that's how it's helped me become more educated and found mentors and all that kind of thing around my coaching. But my coaching and my evolution as an athlete as well as a businessman has come down from pushing myself into those realms. Physically, I have a cold shower every day. Now, this is a huge hot topic in relation to what people are doing. And they're giving you all the neuroscience and fucking brown fat this and change your life for that and change your breathing pattern, all that kind of shit. Yeah, that's all well and good. And I do endorse it, and there's some really good science around it, and I think it can be very beneficial for inflammation, etc., etc. But the reason why I have a cold shower in the morning, first thing, is purely because I feel like I've won something. I've done something tough. It's not going to kill me, and it's going to harden me up. Obviously, everyone's heard the Goggins analogy of callus in your brain. Callus in your brain is literally is not just a physical or a mental thing. It's an emotional thing. Are you choosing the easy route? Are you choosing the things that are going to actually make a win in that situation? So reverting back to that comes down to you owning your current scenario and challenge yourself to do something that you haven't done before. That's within the realms of possibility. That's called a stretch gap. If you have a stretch gap, that means you're going to be that excited, but that anxious, you're going to become hyper-focused. And if you can become hyper-focused, that's where your productivity increases. Stephen Kotler talks about your productivity increasing by 500%. That can actually happen if you actually focus on it. So the last final piece of this about developing resiliency is, are you walking the walk? Are you not just talking the talk? Are you setting your standards and living by them? Or are you giving them to other people and hiding behind your phone or hiding behind a door? The way that we do this, remember, pressure is a privilege. And if you're looking to lead yourself, lead others, become better at what you do, improve on your physical, mental, and emotional performance, you have to harden up, because that's going to be the dictating factor of when times get tough. Are you that person you can be relied on? Are you that person that can push through? Are you that person that can still deliver when they're under pressure? Or do you crumble? And if you do, that is the key thing for that is for you to actually have the ability to ask for help. I think a lot of people think that becoming resilient is a singular endeavor. I've learned in my time in the gym that if you are in a pack mentality of being somewhere where you have accountability to push yourself harder and harder, if you're in that space, if you're in that way of operating, you will increase your level of output and performance by twofold just because of the expectation and that tribe mentality. Anyway, that's the start of firstly talking about resilience, the piece about my Fred Whitton challenge. Next video, what I'll go over is I will go over my strategies and my kit that I'll be taking, what I'm going to think of doing throughout the race, how I'm going to sort of compartmentalize this, because this is going to be a fucking long day at 11 hours or whatever it is. And lastly, I'll give you a bit of an insight into how sort of the way that we're training and how we're utilizing training blocks and how what we're trying to sort of do when we're packing in these small. I've had 2 weeks. I have a race. 2 weeks later, 2.5 weeks later, I've got another race, and then I've got 4.5 weeks or 5 weeks to chase the sun. Obviously, these are small time blocks of training. So what I'll do is I'll show you how I'm doing it, what I'm trying to focus on, what me and Mr. Brad Foster will be doing in 5 weeks' time, and obviously you may get the next one after the Fred Whitton Challenge or before. I'll get some footage. Anyway, gang, any questions, do please let me know. Really appreciate any of the support. I'd also massively appreciate any feedback. I fully appreciate that I haven't got the lighting that I did last time because my man Sam Lindley's not here. I'm doing this on my own for this one, so I don't look as glamorous. I look 45 now rather than Benjamin Button. Thanks, Fred. Anyway, gang, have an awesome day, and I'll catch you soon.